Okay, this is the follow-on from verse 1. It's still verse 1 of Drysha, Viveka. And before we start today's class, I wanted to clarify something that I said yesterday in the last class. As said, this text is Twam Pada Vichara, which is inquiry into you. Ultimately, this is inquiry into you as in the absolute meaning, Sakshi. And this is how Swami Taratmananda also explains this in verse 1. Twam Pada can also be taught as being in regard to Jiva, and I'll loosely say the person as well. 1 second, guys. I'm trying to get you guys on screen here. I can keep seeing you, yeah. So, Tat Pada can be taught in regard to God, creation, and in respect of Panchakaranam, which is what I spoke of yesterday. Creation God is looked into in some detail. It includes the person, experience, and some other things, and that's all included within creation God. And that's why I referred yesterday to Tat Pada in regard to Panchakaranam as inquiry into the person. And I should have went on to say that the person resolves into God, and that in turn, that God resolves into Brahman. So, in case there's any Vedanta experts looking at what I just said. Okay, right. This text is looking at the difference between subject and object. We're going to go over things again and reinforce the yanam that we looked at yesterday. Whatever is known can't be the knower. So the body is known. I can't then be the body. Though I will still say, I am tired. And this kind of language is a real problem. It's language that we all use. It's reinforcing suffering. I'm placing limitation on the limitlessness that I am, and this is done all the time. We've been doing this our whole lives, but the good news is that this text is great for breaking that spell of bondage. We misinterpret experience, but if the body is experienced by you, it is not you. And it's the same with thoughts. Whatever is in your mind is known. And we've already seen that you can't be that which is known. Known is object, the knower is subject, and they don't cross over. It's the same with emotions. You feel sad because it's known in the mind. Since sadness is known to you, you must be the knower of that which is known. So, since sadness is known to you, you must be the knower of that sadness. See, I've objectified sadness. If I am the knower of something, I cannot be that thing because I am the knower of that. Okay? So sadness then is an object. And as we saw again and again already, you can't be that object. As you are the subject, the knower is not known. So if you know sadness, how can you be sadness? How can you be sad? So you're not sad. And this language is really important. I am sad. Can you see the problem? It's the same with I am happy. One isn't better than the other, and I'm going to explain why. What's the problem in life? It's this notion that I lack, that I am limited, and I want freedom from this lacking. So why am I saying I am sad and happy and so on? These are temporary. They're limited, and that reinforces limitation. And we have to resolve this confusion. How do you know your mental activities? These activities, they're known to you, but how are they known? And by instinct, you might say, you just know. You're conscious of the mind's activities, and that's a good way to phrase it, actually. I'm aware of the mental activities, or I'm conscious of the mental activities. I am that consciousness which enables all things in the mind to be known. Sakshi is consciousness, which is you. Is there two of you? Does someone know what is happening in your mind, or do you know what's happening in the mind? You know. So there isn't an experience of another being called Sakshi in your mind, is there? Hopefully not. Your experience is that you are the witness to the mind's activities. Isn't that right? You witness the mind's activities. Yeah. So this text is showing you what you actually are, not the mind. You are the witness to the mind. If we go back to yesterday's class, and we go back to yesterday's class, and we look around, we see a television, we see a laptop, or the eye see a television, the eye see a laptop, the eye see the ground, the eye see walls, the eye see ceiling. So the eyes are perceiving objects. Yeah, the eyes are perceiving objects. Because the eyes have perceived objects, the eyes must be the perceiver of that which is perceived. Okay? So we can likewise say the eyes have witnessed the television, the floor, the wall, the laptop, the ceiling. So the eyes have witnessed. For something to witness something, it must be the witness. So the perceiver, unperceived, the witness, the witnessed, the observer, the observed, the seen, the seer, and the seen. When these eyes look at the television, they don't become the television. When these eyes look at the floor, it doesn't become the floor. The eyes don't become the floor. So a clear distinction is present at all times between the subject, the witness, and that which is witnessed, the object. It's the same with the body. The body is known to me, like the television is known to me. So the body is known to me, so I can't be the body, just like I'm not the television. I am the witness to the body, like I am the witness to the television. What about mental activities? Sadness. Sadness is an emotion in the mind, and it's known to me. Like the television is known to me. Like this body is known to me. So I am the witness to sadness or happiness. Sadness and happiness are objects. They're subtle objects compared to the television or the body, but they're still objects, name and form. So I am the witness to sadness, a mental activity. That means I am the witness to happiness, another mental activity. Excitement, another mental activity. Love, another mental activity. Hatred, another mental activity. I'm the witness to mental activities. Since I'm the witness to mental activities, I cannot be those mental activities. So I'm not the mind. I'm not the body. I'm not the senses. I'm not the objects. I am the witness to the mind. Every single mental activity is witnessed by you. And this text is about identification, identifying what you, I, is. You are not the body or the mind or an external event. So every experience is witnessed by Sakshi, that which you are. And like light will illumine dirt, it's never impacted or affected by it. We spoke of this yesterday. Excuse me. Because of consciousness, you know what happens in the mind. Because of the mind, you know what your senses pick up. And because of the senses, you know the external world. The world experience is in 3 steps from the mind. The experience of the external world with the senses is indirect experience, and the experience in the mind is direct experience. Lastly, in the last line of verse 1, it says, you are the observer, but that is not observed. This is very, very important. You observe the thoughts. You observe yourself as the observer of your thoughts. Or sorry, you experience. That's wrong. that's totally wrong. You experience yourself as the observer of your thoughts. Oh God. Yeah. You experience yourself as the observer of your thoughts. As in, the thoughts are known. You know the thoughts, and that's the experience that you're having, knowing the thoughts. Okay. So don't try to have some perception of Sakshi, because you are Sakshi and you have the perception always. Okay. And this verse has went through 3 levels: the external, the senses, and the mind. And the next 3 verses, we'll look at each of these separately. And that's the end of that class. Has anybody any questions, please?
So if I don't have a question, I will invent some. So
That's good.
I understand the 3 layers, maybe you could say. So the object, the senses, and the mind. And so there is a, how do you call it? There is an order in those things.
Yes.
But you could also say purely from the observer, there is actually no difference whether a thought appears or a body or a chair. It is all object. Is that correct?
Well, we're going to look at this in more detail later on in this text, and we're going to show that me and Judy spoke just earlier. Actually, we're going to show that Sakshi, witnessing consciousness, illumines the mind, which is subtle, and the mind illumines the sense objects, and the sense objects illumine the world. So it's not that Sakshi will illumine the world, if you know what I mean. It's, if you can think of it, let me try to clumsily say it, like I said to Judy earlier. It's like we have pure consciousness, and then at the top, and then we have Sakshi, or we have pure consciousness, Sakshi at the top. Then we have the mind, which is subtle, next down, and then we have the sense organs, and then we have the gross matter. Does that make sense? So one is illuminating the other, and it's getting less subtle as the chain goes along. If that makes sense. Yeah.
It does suddenly, because without a mind, the consciousness wouldn't be able to directly to experience.
Yeah, well,
it doesn't experience, but to see the world.
Yeah,
you need a mind to see the world.
That's exactly right. That the experience of the mind, the experience. I am the observer of the thoughts in this mind, so that's how I experience as the thoughts are known. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not that I, Sakshi, picking up sight, that I am seeing things or hearing things or anything like that, because that's the sense organs that's further along. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So because if this is a very important question, because if that wasn't the case, that means that we have a sequence here. It's very important. If that wasn't the case, that means that the subject, Sakshi, would be not only interacting with the mind, but would be going further along as well. And as we've already saw that the subject does not is not impacted by the object. So for Sakshi, pure consciousness to go further than the mind and would be being impacted by it, by the mind. Okay. Don't forget the mind is changeable in itself.
Yeah.
And the mind, of course, is Chittabhasa, reflective consciousness, the same as objects as well.
Yeah, very clear. Thank you.
Yes,
Judy.
Judy? Are you just
I have
reading?
something burning.
Okay, great.
Pardon?
You have food burning, or you have a question burning?
It's not even a question. It's a
Not your
visual.
house. You haven't got your house burning. Your house isn't burning, no? Because I know you're
No.
dedicated to the class, but like you could go and see to that.
No, I've got a burning visual.
Okay.
Okay, so let's visualize like the sun being consciousness and the moon being the reflected consciousness being like Sakshi. Just let me finish. And then the reflected being the mind, the water being reflected being like the mind. And then let's just say take it a step further, and then even more subtle consciousness, the reflected consciousness off of the water, even more subtle being everything else, more reflected, reflected.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it becomes more and more.
Then, but it's not becoming more subtle, it's becoming more gross.
More diluted.
But it's becoming like pure consciousness is so subtle, and then the mind is subtle, but the sense organs and then matter, the external matter becomes gross. So it doesn't become more subtle, it becomes less subtle.
Less subtle, yes.
From consciousness.
Do you see what I mean? Like now, I've got this visual of like it just becoming more dispersed from the sun, being less reflected.
Yes, that's exactly. So pure consciousness, because it's becoming more subtle as the sequence goes along, it's becoming, I think we can say becoming more dispersed. Maybe I can be corrected by somebody, but I think so. Yeah, I think so.
That's nice, calling it more dispersed. Yeah.
Yeah. In this context, anyway, later on in other teachings, we will not do this. Say it's more dispersed because it makes a difference, but getting discrimination, Viveka, is the only purpose of this text, and it's very, very important as well. So
if I have that visual in my head, can we say that that's accurate? Because
you want to speak to,
can you get
what? Sorry?
Even if you want to get back, if I have that visual, can we say that that's accurate? Because I need that. Well, that will help me with the understanding.
Let's look at it after class, maybe, and you can write it to me, and we'll look at it. We'll look at it then.
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay. So, any other questions, guys? We want to this is really important that it becomes, me and Judy were talking earlier on, and it becomes so, once we get to grips with this, then it becomes so obvious. But until then, it's not obvious. And getting the fundamental right, this is an introductory text to Vedanta, but getting this basic fundamental right will help everything else. Like even this verse one, if we get verse 1 down to a T, if we get the grips with verse 1, we will get the grips with the next 3 verses, which are about the external world, which is about the external world, the sense organs, and the mind. That's 4 verses that we will have got to grips with completely in this text, and that's a really good start. Yeah, we have there's something like 30 something verses in this, but we'll only be doing up to verse 21 maybe. The other verses from after that, there's like to do with samadhis and stuff, and Swami Satananda had wrote to me an email and suggested just stop at 21, and so we'll see where we go from there. But okay.
Yeah, and I will be curious to do this visual. Where is placed the mind, where is the eyes, where is the sense object. So I'm really curious to go into that further.
I'm happy to paint it out too if you want me to.
Yeah, great.
I've got a big canvas. I can make a big painting.
Nice.
Send it to Vicky.
That'll be good.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, guys. Well, listen.
Okay.
There's no more questions. We'll speak again soon.
No.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Both of you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice seeing you both.
Bye bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.